Good morning. I'm Pete Najarian. This is the take on this Monday morning, Friday, another one of those bumpy days. We say it every single day, but it's true. You take a look on Friday. As a matter of fact, we started the first half of the day on the Dow. We were down. We were in the red. We actually were down as much as 200 points. We then rallied and were positive by more than 200 points, only to give it all back in the final 20 minutes. So pretty wild ride. If you take a look at things, we actually closed down about 21 points on the day for the Dow. So if you're just looking open to close, didn't look like much happened. There was a lot going on. Matter of fact, the NASDAQ had a similar day. It wasn't nearly as red early on. It actually traveled to the upside. It was up as much as 300 points to the upside. It still closed, matter of fact, up 200 points. But in the final 20 minutes, another ETF that was off significantly from where it had been on the higher end. So a lot of movement. We've got some volatility. We've got a lot of different things moving on what we're looking at right now. Specifically, you talk about oil each and every day. Got up towards 93. We actually closed a little bit closer to 92. You take a look over at that 10-year. That was the topic of a lot of conversation, because as that 10-year started to approach not only 1.9, but actually execute and go through 1.9, 193 area, a lot of talk about, okay, well, what's going to happen with the Fed? Where are they going to start? How many hikes are they going to have? Not just how hikes themselves, how many? Is there going to be 5? Is there 6? Is there? So everybody has their opinions there. That just does cause a lot more of a disruption within the markets, and that's what we were seeing. As a matter of fact, volatility went anywhere between 22 and 26 for the VIX, closed right around 23.20. The volume's extraordinary once again, over 47 million contracts. We had 5 different stocks that traded well over 1 million contracts each. You start off with Snap, then you look over at Ford, Tesla, Apple, Facebook, all of them 1 million plus options trading. So certainly seeing a lot of activity as we were going into the weekend. So what sectors were moving? Well, certainly one of the areas that stuck out, you look over at Amazon, that was something that was up huge. It was up 13%. It had been down, but was up 13%. That was a post-earnings kind of a move. That was actually moving the consumer discretionary. It's moving a lot of different parts of the market. Obviously, as the mega cap tech, we talk about those FANG names all the time. That was dragging names along it as well. You'll take a look over at the financials. They had a pretty nice day as well, up a little over 1.5%. The leader there, JP Morgan, had a very, very nice day as well, along with many of the different financials as well. Energy up over 1.5%. You look over at the biggies. There's Chevron. That was moving things around a little bit. So then you look over in technology. We look at something like Datadog, up 9%. I look over at Zoom, up more than 4%. So Tesla has been that name for a very long period of time and just continues to be that name. When Tesla's moving to the upside, it seems to pull a lot of the technology names to the upside as well. We also had Twitter up about 7%. Snap stood out because of everything that had been going on with Facebook. A lot of those were reading into that. Well, what does that mean for Snap? Apparently, it was exactly the opposite. Snap did a great job. And as a matter of fact, you look at their numbers, it was up 58% on Friday. So a really, really nice jump there. Big names like Salesforce, a lot of those technology names moving up 1, 2, 3%. That certainly helped out markets as well as we were pushing to the upside. But you take over, and not everything was great. Clorox, as a matter of fact. Now, some of these names, they're blaming, obviously, supply chains, and there's also all kinds of different things going in terms of inflation and everything else. Clorox being one of these kind of names, down about 14%. They had a miss. Then you look over at Ford, all the excitement in Ford. It had that big run mid-January all the way up towards 25. It's been pulling back ever since. That was down a little over 9.5% on Friday as well. Then you look at the builders. You look at names like Pulte. You look at D.R. Horton. You look at Lennar. All those names kind of pulling down in that segment of the markets as well. Royal Caribbean. Now, we talk about these cruise ships. They're up and down each and every day. It's just a matter of a headline here, headline there, and you have that movement to the upside. We'll be talking about that in just a second. We did have that strength, as I mentioned, in the financials. It was JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, American Express, Travelers, all of those having a nice move to the upside. So a lot going on within the markets themselves. We pull into today. Very much a yawner early on. Not a lot of movement. You're looking at the Dow up about 30 points or so. The NASDAQ up about 40 points. That's the very early. That's the pre-markets. And not a lot going on. It stayed that way for a while, and then we started to see the NASDAQ start to really push to the upside. It was up about 90 points, and it pulled back a little bit. That was up 130 points. pulled back a little bit. Last I looked, we were up about 85 points on the NASDAQ, about 30 points on the Dow. So certainly you're seeing those segments of what's really working right now and what's not. A little bit of a dislocation. I know both are in positive, but certainly watching a much bigger percentage move right now by NASDAQ itself. So crude, 93 on Friday, closed 92. Started at 92 early on. Right now, last I looked, we're trading right around 91. That 10 years basically unchanged, still well over 1.9. Now, the story of the day at the end of the day on Friday, because obviously going into the weekend, you're a lot less of paying attention to earnings and so forth, but Peloton suddenly stood out after getting absolutely slaughtered month after month after month daily, pushing to the downside. All of a sudden, there was some interest, maybe some bidders out there. Is it going to be Amazon? Is it going to be Nike? Maybe Apple steps in. Who might actually want to buy Peloton? That's the big conversation. That's spiking that stock. As a matter of fact, Peloton having a very, very big day on Friday, but also starting off today up over 24% from that Friday close. And that was before we all of a sudden heard all of these different rumors. Now, Bitcoin, again, really gotten pummeled, but starting to make a little bit of a comeback, up about another couple of percent today, actually trading over that 43,000 level, up a couple of thousand points. That's a pretty nice big move, a pretty big healthy move. I look over at consumer discretionary. That's been the one area today where everything else is very, very tight, not a whole lot of movement, but that's an area started off about 0.5% to the upside, moved up about a 1.25% to the upside. Last I looked, it was up about 1%. Outside of that, and outside of energy kind of flipping around, starting in the negative and then flipping a little bit more into the positive, but not a lot of movement there. Semiconductors started off a little bit stronger. That kind of waned a little bit, but it's starting to come back just a little bit right now. So not a whole lot of movement when you look at all the major sectors, only a little bit here and there over about a 1% move. Other than that, everything's very, very tight so far. We'll see how long that actually lasts. Tyson, up 9%. You look at the cruise lines, I mentioned last Friday, down a little bit. Today, Monday, going into this week, cruise lines all in positive territory by about 4%. Then you look at the airlines. Now, we did have that big announcement with Frontier merging or actually buying Spirit. That's something that certainly sort of shakes up the industry. Will there get approval? All of that. That's something to be known at another time. But it's actually moving those airlines to the upside pretty nicely. From Alaska to American to United, you name it, a nice little move to the upside there as well. Datadog. We're looking at some of these names that are just starting to move once again. And Datadog had a nice move Friday, had another nice move today. Amazon, Peloton. We talked about PayPal as well. A little bit of a lift to the upside. Now, those beta energy names, however, they're not really trading nearly as well. We have that pullback, as I mentioned, in oil. Not huge. We got up to 93 on Friday. Here we are, 91. So not a big drop. But when you're looking at these beta energy names, a little bit of pressure on those right now. Names like Oxy, APA, Devon, ConocoPhillips, all just kind of pulling to the downside. Not huge, but a pull to the downside, certainly being a draw. And then there's Dow itself, which has been a name that for whatever reason really has been a focal name of late in terms of some of these moves to the upside and then some of these moves to the downside. Today, a little bit of a downside move. I got two unusuals for you, then we're going to get out of here. Fossil, that's number one. Trading a little bit over 11.5, call it 1165. We had a buyer of 4,200 of the March 14 calls. So looking just out of the money, but the 14 calls, they're not buying something a little bit closer. So looking with a little bit of time into March and a little bit higher strike at that 14. Those are going for about 50 cents up to about 65 cents. That one stood out for me, along with AMD. Now, AMD seems to hit consistently at the early parts of the week, and they play these weeklies. It's exactly what they're doing once again. Hitting here on a Monday, they're buying Friday's expiring, so the 11th. They're buying the 128 calls. Now, that's with the stock trading just beneath 126. So these are just out of the money calls. Not going to take a whole lot of a move, but it's going to have to move to the upside for these to start moving. And actually, we've got 4 or 5 days for this to play out. 9,200 of those calls being bought. 210 all the way up to about $2.80 was the final highest level where they were purchasing those calls. Something to watch on as we get through the day and the rest of the week, but certainly something very interesting as we've seen semiconductors actually starting to bounce back a little bit. Not all of them, but some of them starting to bounce back a little bit. So that's something we'll be tracking as well. Folks, have a great day of trading. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow.